Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. It's another Baldy's Breakdown edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, and that means we're joined by Brian Baldinger. You can find him, of course, on Twitter and on NFL Network, breaking down everything National Football League. Baldy, what's going on, man? Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to see you, John. We got week 8 in the books. It was, it was a competitive game last night. They came up short last night, but they did a lot of good things in that game. The rookie running back's the real deal. Tyrone Tracy is the real deal here, John. Might as well just start with, the obvious and what really looked good last night.
Yeah, so why don't we start there? The Steelers head into this game, Baldy, as maybe a top 3 rush defense in the
No
league,
doubt.
depending on what metric you want to look at.
Yeah,
And I want to give the interior offensive line credit too. I thought they create a lot of space and they move guys off the ball, something they couldn't do the last 2 weeks against Philly
yeah.
and Cincinnati. And then Tyrone Tracy took advantage of the room that he had.
He did. He had, the Steelers going into the game, they were giving up 3.6 yards a carry. Like you said. And, Tyrone leaves the game averaging 7.3. The biggest run they'd given up all year was 21 yards. He had 2 of them over 21 yards. And he was a tough guy to tackle. But the breakaway run to get him back in the game for 45 yards, it's the longest play by the Giants all year, offensive play all year. And you see, like, he hit that thing. And then, look, I call him an angle assassin because Minka Fitzpatrick doesn't miss those tackles. He took a bad angle. Like, he completely misjudged the kid's speed. He should have at least gotten him out of bounds, and he beat him to the pylon. Like, you see the speed, and for Minka, as good as he is, as much as he's been around, like, he's their free safety for a reason. He saves touchdowns. And for him to beat him like that and to get the Giants back in the game, that was saying something.
Yeah, and look, Tracy continues to just play well. Unfortunately, he had to lead the game late with that concussion. His head he went down, he hit his back of the head on the turf.
Yeah.
And boy, you're going to need him next week against Washington. So hopefully he can figure things out. Running back, I think it's probably going to be tough. You know how it works with the protocol, especially a short week coming
Yeah.
off of a Monday. But he just adds such an explosive element to this offense that I'm not going to say they're missing because they have guys like Slayton and Neighbors who can make those
Yeah.
plays too. But to have a guy in the run game that can make those explosive plays, it really does make a difference.
It makes a difference. And like you said, I thought Runyon and John Michael, I think, Van Roten, I thought they all played well inside. They got a hat on a hat. They got movement at the point. I thought Hubbard played pretty well considering, like he's kind of a journeyman, whatever. But, I thought he played pretty well in there. A couple of pass, I thought he was a little late off the ball, a couple pass sets. But otherwise, I thought they did a good job up front. And, you give that guy a crease, he hits it. And then the other thing is, like, he's powerful. Like, if you don't get him and wrap up his legs, like, you saw that 17-yard run there in the fourth quarter. Like, they had him like bunched up at the 8. He took him for another 9 yards after contact.
Yeah, he broke 4 or 5 tackles on that play by good physical tacklers too. These are the Steelers now. It's not like you're running against the,
No, it's Deshaun
Dallas
Elliott,
Cowboys
Minka
defense
Fitzpatrick, and Patrick Queen. That's the heart of that defense right there.
Now, you mentioned the offensive line. I thought they did a good job in the run game, Bully, but you mentioned it in pass protection. And look, it's tough. The Steelers are rolling out 3 awesome individual pass rushers. Cameron Hayward inside. Alex Highsmith is a good pass rusher. And then, obviously, you have TJ Watt coming off the left side. And you have Chris Hubbard out there, left tackle, who was a somewhat surprise starter at that spot. Josh Azudu started last week. They decided to go with the veteran this week. And you want to help him. And you saw why Alex Highsmith had some inside spin moves. He took advantage of them in a couple of plays. But then you got to leave Jermaine Illuminor, who, again, has been solid this year, but you don't want to ever single up TJ Watt because he's TJ Watt. So talk about what kind of pickle that puts an offensive coordinator in trying to figure that out.
Well, you're spread thin. You want the explosive plays, and they got some last night. Slayton on the third play of the game. And he had time to get to a second read on that throw. They had some explosive. They missed Neighbors on a couple of deep shots. But in one, he had his hands on the ball. Normally he comes up with those acrobatic catches. But, they got some deep, considering that pass rush you're describing, they still got some deep shots out there. I thought the tight ends did a decent job of chipping on the way out. So I thought they had a plan. Look, I've seen teams do a great job on TJ Watt for 58 out of 60 plays. And the 2 plays, he can ruin you. And that's what he did last night. He had 2 plays where he kind of really ruined their chances at the end of the game right there. You got a chance to go tie it up. And, he's gifted like that. He lives for those moments. And, there's only a couple guys in this league that can really take a game over. And he has that ability Strahan did that for a long time, and they had guys. The Giants didn't know how to do it. LT knew how to do it. But only a couple guys in this league understand the gravity of the game, the situation of the game, and when they have to be at their very best. And I thought TJ did that last night.
Yeah, he's a closer. There's no question
He's
about
a
it in the big
closer.
moments, and he knows how to get after the football too. He has that OCU Manura knack for getting his hand in
Yeah.
there and knocking the ball out.
No, no, there's no question. I thought Daniel was holding the ball too low. Be honest with you, a little too casual, knowing that TJ is there somewhere, and so like a little bit on the quarterback. But he did it twice against the Raiders down the goal line and just knocked the ball out. Whether he's punching it out or tapping it with his hands, he's got long arms. He can really dip underneath people. He showed me his pass rush moves one day, and I was like, "Good Lord, if you're the tackle, like you got your hands full."
And here's Baldy, what I think is so frustrating about this game. After 2 consecutive weeks with the Giants, in one game, their longest play was 15 yards. In their other game, their longest play was 14 yards.
Yep.
They had 5 plays in this game of 25 yards or more. And when
Yep.
you have 5 plays of 25 yards or more and 3 plays of 35 yards or more,
Yeah.
you got to score more
You
than
got to score
just those
touchdowns.
2 touchdowns. You
Well, I
have
mean, just
the one touchdown. I'm sorry. You have to. 4 field goals and one touchdown when you have 4 plays of 35, 3 plays of
yeah.
35 or more yards. You can't have
Well,
that.
look, man, they run a great play for Manhurts. He scores a touchdown, gets called back. It's just a look. It's careless. It's just careless on Malik's part. Like he's got to be set, and he's a little cavalier coming in motion, and he's not set. And sometimes you get away with that. Sometimes you don't. They got called for a couple times last night, and it's just a detail. And I'm sure Brian is all over that. But that's a great play. It was great play action. Nobody expects Manhurts to get that ball. He beats the safety to the pylon. It's a touchdown. They take the lead right there. It gets called back. And so, you end up settling for a field goal. They move the ball and you got those chunk plays, but then, you had delay of game, 2 delay of game penalties. Like I don't know why the plays either it's not getting out or it's taking so much time, but those plays they kill you when you're trying to finish drives.
They had 2 delay games. They had 2 illegal shifts. They had another illegal man downfield, something that they've had way too many of this year, Baldy. They had, let's see, what else do you have in here? 2 holding penalties. Just
Well, you had three. You had 2 on the right, 2 on one on the left guard. So yeah,
just
those things back you up.
just procedural stuff. And
Yeah.
constantly they put themselves into these, they were 2nd and 6. They have a 2 yard run. It would have been 3rd and 4. They get called for an illegal shift. And then they get called, I believe, for a false start on the next play. Then you're in 2nd and 16 and TJ Watt gets a sack. Yeah, no crap. You're in 2nd and 16. That's what's going to happen. And that's what those little mistakes and those little breaches of focus that you're
Well,
talking about can have big consequences.
well, you think about the explosive plays you talk about. One, they had a great 2 minute drill going, 2 minute drill going at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
They're in a scoring position, and then those penalties showed up, and they end up getting taken out of field goal range. They could have been at least in field goal range there, John, where you go in maybe up 12-9 at half. Same thing happens at the start of the third quarter. They get a good drive going, and they go backwards. And so, yes, they needed more touchdowns last night in that game. That's why they went for it on 4th and 2 early in the game. They called a good play for Malik Neighbors. They executed it perfectly. They got that done, but you have to kind of take those chances. Especially, look, I understand some of the flinching on the line. The terrible towels are waving. You're in that Acrisure Stadium. It's a crazy atmosphere. I can understand some of that. But the illegal procedure penalties, not getting lined up correctly, those things have nothing to do with the atmosphere.
Yeah, and they also had an illegal formation penalty that got declined on a 3rd down too. When you have, and look, some of these penalties were by older players, and
Yeah,
those obviously you can't have, but they have a lot of young players that are playing for the Giants, right? I think weighted by snap, they have the youngest team in the league this year in terms of guys that are playing a lot of snaps.
yeah,
When you mentioned the neighbor's illegal shift, he didn't get his feet in on that one play down the sideline. He had the drop on the slant. He had the drop over the top on the sideline.
yeah.
You have Deontay Banks, who we know has had lapses over the past couple of weeks. He ends up getting benched the final 2 quarters of this game. How do you address that, Baldy, with younger guys that maybe don't quite get it yet, how in the NFL you have to be locked in at every single moment. Otherwise, it can cost your team wins and losses.
Well, unfortunately, like if you look at the defensive back room, I mean, you got Drew Phillips, you got Ty Nubin. Like you don't have a lot of veterans there to kind of to show Deontay the way, And for Malik, it's still, I mean, although Darius Slayton has been there, he's the best player on offense, and so you know they those kind of things, like you can address them all week, but you got it's just the details, and you got to hammer home. Starting with Brian, but then to the position coaches and the coordinators, you got to hammer home how important the details are. I mean, if you look at the play of, we'll get to it, but I'm sure, but if you look at the meteoric rise of Dexter Lawrence over the last 3 years, last 2 years, like he was a guy that was not an every down player to start his career, probably was out of shape at times. And now he's chasing Russell Wilson to the sideline. It's the most important thing in the world. He's playing with max effort. He doesn't want to come off the field. Like he's making these unbelievable plays. It's really up to the leadership of the team to bring these young guys, because they need them. And they can win some of these close games. But it's up to really, I mean, the coaches can preach it. The leadership has to kind of show how to get it done. And, Bobby and Dexter and, some of these guys have been around. It would help if they kind of took some of that challenge and helped those guys out.
Yeah, and Dexter and Brian Burns were very vocal about that after the game. Remember, Dexter had Leonard Williams next to him for the early part of his career, and he learned a ton from Leo. Final question on the offense, and, you kind of mentioned this off the top, Baldy. The Giants had the second most yards that any team has had against the Steelers this year. Only the Cowboys had more a few weeks ago on that Sunday night game. They moved the ball. Daniel Jones played pretty well for the first 3.5 quarters until those two big mistakes at the end of the game. Were there a couple plays you'd like to have back, like that little, cover 2 hole shot to the left of Slayton? Sure, I thought there was a roll to the right where he could have hit Slayton deep and he didn't see him. Sure, every quarterback's won a couple plays back. But the Giants moved the ball up and down the field. On the road again, by the way, which is where they seem to do
bizarre.
It's just, it's very frustrating that even when this team does so many things right offensively, they do enough things wrong where they can't even get more than 20 points. I don't even have a question. I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, no, there's no, but they said it on the broadcast last night. Maybe if Daniel could play on the road in Seattle, some tough places, Pittsburgh, he looks way more comfortable. He looks more sure of himself. He sets his feet for the most part. He made a number of good deep throws last night. Some that was missing completely, the last 2 weeks. So there is something there. And I don't know, I don't want to be a pop psychologist, but there's something there on the road where he locks in a lot better than he does at home.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Giants Huddle Podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans can get the most out of every moment with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. Baldy, the thing on the defensive side of the ball that kind of annoyed me a little bit in this game was heading into this ball game. You knew that the Steelers were going to try to do 3 things, right? Run the football, do play action off the run game, and let Russell Wilson take deep shots. Do you know how they gained all their yards in this game?
Right there.
Doing those 3 things, and they still couldn't stop them.
Well, look, I mean, Najee is on a rip right now. I mean, he's 3 straight games over 100 yards. Like, if you let him get started, I don't think he's a great back. But if he does get a runway, like he's powerful, he'll take people with him. But he's not, he doesn't have the quickest feet, the best vision. But they opened up some holes last night. It's been a problem for the Giants. They gave up a number of, 10-plus yard runs. And look, I mean.
Steelers, by the way, Baldy, sorry for interrupting, 19 plays of 10 yards or more in the game. That's insane.
I mean, look, the throw to Calvin Austin for the touchdown, I mean, it's a great throw. Drew Phillips is not in bad shape. The safety is on the other. He's kind of clouding. Pickens on the other side. It's the right read by Russell. So, I mean, the rookie got picked on a little bit. You wouldn't think Calvin Austin would, but the coverage wasn't terrible. The throw to Van Jefferson on the sideline, I don't know. I think McFadden was on him. I don't know if he could cover any better.
McLeod. It was McLeod, yeah.
McLeod. I'm sorry, McLeod. But, I mean, he's right there. He just couldn't make the play on the ball. And then Pickens has a couple on the sideline. That's his specialty. I mean, Russell gave him a chance to make those plays. The coverage it wasn't like they blew the coverage. They just didn't play the ball in the air very well.
Yeah, and I thought the rush defense got better in the second half, Baldy, but in the first half, a couple of those drives by the Steelers, I mean, just on that first drive alone, Najee Harris for 10 yards, Najee Harris for 10 yards, Jalen Warren for 17 yards, Jalen
Yeah.
Warren for 9 yards, Najee Harris for 7 yards, Najee Harris for 26 yards, just chunk runs after chunk runs. And I almost thought it was odd where the defensive line wasn't so much building a wall like you're supposed to. They were almost trying to jump out of their gaps to find places to penetrate. And they left some really big spaces, especially on the outside, where I thought sometimes the edge players got way too far inside and allowed room for them to get off tackle for some big runs.
They got movement up front. I mean, look, that's a rookie 4th-round pick or 6th-round pick at right guard. That's basically a rookie at center. They should have been better against Ryan McCullum and Mason McCormick. I mean, Sam Howell is a very good player, but like, you know, they're not. It's not. Broderick Jones has had his issues at right tackle. They've been trying to replace the left tackle now for 3 years. They just can't keep anybody healthy enough to do it. It's, and to see the movement that they got, honestly, at the point of attack, like it, even Big Dexter in there was getting moved, and I don't know, like it wasn't great gap defense there. Like that defeats every run, or penetration defeats it, and they didn't get enough of that against those guys.
No, I'm with you. And that has been an issue the last couple of weeks. Now against Philly last week, now against the Steelers this week. And look, for a Steeler team that has struggled moving the ball, Baldy, they had over 400 yards of offense in this game. Russell Wilson, I thought again, and I got to tip my cap to him. Russell Wilson's looked really good the last couple of weeks. But I was disappointed with how much they allowed them to get behind them. I know you mentioned the coverage wasn't that bad, but I think you have to try to make Russell Wilson navigate the middle of the field a little bit and not let him get those perimeter throws where he's so comfortable outside the numbers.
No question, no question. And so you got to get hands in his face. I mean, he's a short quarterback in the pocket. That's why he moves so much, and he likes to get out of the pocket to get better vision. But you got to get. I mean, even Dexter, when he was chasing him, had his hands up. I know Sean was probably talking about it all week. Get your hands up, like occlude his vision as much as you can. But if you let him just take 3-step drops and air it out like that, like he's very accurate still with the ball.
But Dexter Lawrence was, again, pretty dominant. Azeez Ojulari had a couple of sacks. Brian Burns had a sack. His sack came because Dexter Lawrence moved the quarterback out of the pocket into him. And, again, when they give the pass rush a chance to get after a ball, this unit has proven to be pretty good. They still lead the league in sacks with 5 more than the second-place team with 35.
They get them in, 3rd and longs, and they're getting after these guys right now. And if they could get into that situation. But, I mean, Dexter is – that's what every quarterback probably fears the most is pressure right up the middle. And on at least 3 occasions last night, he just destroyed whoever was in front of him, and he's right in the face of Russell Wilson. And, he had both hands on Russell Wilson. He got away, and Burns, he cleaned it up. That's okay. That stuff happens. He could have had his 10th sack, which is amazing, in 8 games. Like, nobody's ever done that before. Maybe Aaron Donald did that at one point in his career, but we've never seen an interior defensive lineman affect the quarterback quite like this. Chris Jones is the only other guy right now in this business that can do what Dexter is doing on a regular basis.
There was the one play where he split the double team, and then he treated the running back basically like a traffic cone and just knocked him back. I mean, no one else in the league can do that.
No, I mean, Jalen Warren is a great pass protector too. He's one of the best, if not the best, pass blockers in the league at running back. And honestly, Dexter just he swatted him like he was, just a chicken wing, and it knocked him right out of the way, like he was invisible.
Yeah, he's so much fun to watch. Giants Huddle Podcast brought to you by Citizens, official bank of the Giants. Citizens will donate $750 to the Giants Foundation for each scoring drive during the 2024 season. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. All right, Baldy, anything else on this game before we look ahead real quick to the Commanders?
Look, I mean, they've got to finish. They got to find a way to finish drives, John. They just, I mean, they had opportunities. Obviously, the 1 touchdown to Manhurst, but field goals. Any team that is just surrendering field goals, no matter how many chunk plays you give up, they always feel like they won. They only gave up 3, and so even when it's 9-9, like the defense feels like either way, both defenses feel like they're winning, like they're not giving up touchdowns, and so. that's just, that's where they're at right now. And maybe the tight ends got to get more involved, in down there closer to the goal line. But it would be good if they could just clean things up so that the big plays turn into touchdowns rather than backing themselves up when they got a chance to score.
You mentioned the tight end. That was a heck of a seam throw from Jones to Johnson on that final
Oh,
drive
it's
to get the ball
unbelievable.
down the field.
Theo
Really
really
nice throw
showed
and catch.
he showed great athletic ability. I mean, that throw to Theo. That's a shot not every quarterback wants to make, but they didn't have a choice at that point for him to come up with that ball. Maybe that's kind of an eye opener. Like, this guy should be used more than what they're using right now.
And you said finish drives, and I'll just throw out finish games, Baldy. Look, this is like the bizarre version of the 2022 team where they're in all these close games and they figured out how to way to win all
Yeah.
the close games. This year, they've had opportunities at the end of the Commanders game, end of the Dallas game, end of the Bengals game.
Yeah.
Now the end of this game, where if you make a couple plays here or there, the result could be different. And they just have not been able to make the big play in the big spot, whether it's offensively or defensively at the end of these four close
There's no
games that
doubt.
they've lost.
Cincinnati has got 10 points on the board deep into the fourth quarter. They need one play to win the game. And last week Philadelphia made those plays against Cincinnati. They won. The Giants could have made one of those plays. The defense, all they did was give up that Burrow run. That was it. Otherwise, they kept everything in check, and they needed one play to win that game, and they couldn't make it.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
No question. All right, the Commanders coming up this Sunday. They have a miraculous win, against the who they play last week?
Bears.
Bears,
Chicago.
thank you. Last week, Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels, obviously. We know about the Tyreek Stevenson thing, which I still cannot believe what I saw when I watched that video. But this feels like one of those years where everything's going right for the Commanders, which hasn't happened much for the Commanders over the past couple of decades. But boy, Jaden Daniels is playing well. He's running it well. He actually slid a little bit last week with that rib injury. Good for him, trying to protect himself. And I got to be honest with you. I did not love the hire of Cliff Kingsbury. I thought he struggled a little bit at the end of his head coaching tenure in Arizona. He has done a phenomenal job, I think, scheming up that offense, Baldy, and creating some easy opportunities to let Jaden Daniels get into some rhythm. And then Jaden Daniels has made some really big plays himself above the X's and O's.
Well, here's the thing. I did that game. I announced that game for national radio last week, so I was there. It was some atmosphere in Washington. I hadn't seen it like that in a long time, John. But, they are the hidden thing about Cliff, and I've known him for a long, long time. When he was at Texas Tech, I did a lot of his games. Like, he wants to spread you out. You can talk about air raid offense and all. That's just words. They want to spread you out to run it, and they run it a lot of different ways. They use three back. They actually use all four backs. They're going to use Hector. They're going to use Brian Robinson. He's their power back. He's what we saw last night. He's their Najee Harris. He's very powerful. And then you got to count for, this McNichols and then Jaden himself. And the thing about Jaden is he's much more sudden than what Russell is. Like, his fast twitch, I talked to him before the game. There's not a lot there. He's got a very thin frame, but he is very fast twitch. And he's very accurate with the ball, and he knows where to go with it. He threw a deep ball to Terry McLaurin last week for 61 yards. He can't throw it any better. Chicago played great red zone defense to keep him in the game. They did need the Hail Mary to win it, but I would say you have got to make their secondary pay, John. Like, the pass rush is okay. It's not great. They blitz their linebackers a lot. So Bobby Wagner and Frank Louvu, they blitz them a lot to get pressure. But you got to make their secondary man up, because I think that's still the weakness of this whole team. And so I think offensively they're very talented in the way that they move the ball, the way that they don't beat themselves. The quarterback has 2 interceptions all year. Like, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. And he extends drives with his runs on especially third downs. He knows where the sticks are. But I would say you've got to offensively, you've got to make Benjamin St-Juste and some of these corners and safeties, you got to make them play the ball, because I have questions about the back end of their defense.
Yeah, and I think, and this will be my last one for you, Baldy, I think you got to try to force them into playing some man-to-man. And, Dan Quinn played a ton of man in cover 3 in Dallas. That's what he did. And to his credit, I think he's leaned into a lot more cover 2 here in Washington to try to take pressure off of those corners. But when you do get those guys in one-on-ones, you got to make those big plays and make them pay.
You got to hit like Slayton. You got to make Malik, get over the top on these guys. Like they gave up 9 touchdown passes the first 3 weeks of the season. And it was a real issue. Giants obviously hit, theirs against them. And then they've really calmed down. They've been playing with the lead. They've been blitzing a lot more. And it looks like they've only given up 5 touchdown passes last 5 games. But you look at them early on this year, like I think there's still the same guys playing on the back end of this defense.
Absolutely. Baldy, always good to talk to you, my friend. It's been a couple
John.
of weeks. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I hope so. Thanks, John.
That's the Baldy Breakdown edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. We'll see you next time, everybody.